Welcome to the G5 Hive and our next installment of our Worker Bee series, where we deep dive into the G5 college football landscape with the folks that know the teams the best. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. Today we'll be heading over to the Sun Belt Conference to take a look at the 2024 Sun Belt champions, the Thundering Herd of Marshall. Marshall finished 10-3 last season and earned a bowl game. However, they withdrew from the Independence Bowl due to roster depletion. They wrapped up their 2025 spring practice with their spring game on April 12th. We have a couple special guests joining us today. They are the #1 Marshall Athletics podcast on the earth. These two bring you the thundering word on the thundering herd. He is Russ Livingood. He is KD Hundle. Together, they make up the ThunderCast Pod. Russ can be found on X at Russ Livingood. KD can be found on X at Son of Marshall. The duo can be found on X at ThunderingCast_pod. Welcome to the show, guys.
As always, great to be here repping the herd, talking to you again. It was a lot of fun last year. Glad you asked us to be back. I'm rip-roaring and ready to go, man. Let's talk some herd.
Yeah, and I thought I may have said the same thing last year, but after watching your intro, I'm ready to tailgate, man. You know, I'm here. You know, Sons of Marshall's playing. We got some video highlights. It's bringing back memories. Put a can in my hand. Put some meat on the smoker, and let's get at it.
I mean, it sounds like you had a great time with Justice this last year at ODU.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys can get together again in the future.
Yeah. I'd love to return the favor. Have him at our tailgate if he can make it up for the ODU game. That'd be great.
All right, guys. Well, for those who are just turning into the G5 Hive for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and how long you guys have been covering Marshall football? Katie, we'll start with you.
Well, we're fans first and foremost, right? So covering the herd is really only been a thing since the ThunderCast has been a thing, and that coincided with the move to the Sun Belt from Conference USA. But Russ and I have been fans for a long time. We've been friends for a long time. We both came to Marshall in the same year, 1997, many, many moons ago. Marshall's first year in FBS football, you know, so we were freshmen with the move to the MAC, the Pennington and Moss era. Then we lived through the Leftwich era. And then we lived through coaching change and the Mark Snyder and the Conference USA era, and then Doc Holliday and the Conference Championship there, and now the Sun Belt, Coach Huff, and now the Tony Gibson era is upon us. We've been here for it all, man. And I got to say, the intro with all the plays, I was thinking, yeah, I remember when that happened. I remember when that one happened too. Oh, I remember that one. It's like you're bringing back some great memories of some of my undergrad years and my alum years.
Yeah, and KD mentioned it was that year that we moved to the Sun Belt in 2022. It was, actually, the very first time was April 1st, 2022. And since then, we have done almost every single week. We've had one episode, but we've averaged way more than one a week of episodes of the ThunderCast. So we feel like we've been doing it a lot longer than we have because of the sheer number of episodes that we've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, why don't we get right into it? Katie kind of mentioned it there, but Marshall hired Tony Gibson as their new head coach. Gibson comes in via North Carolina State, where he served as a DC and safeties coach in 2019, and the DC and linebackers coaching the last 5 seasons. What can you tell us about Coach Gibson and what he brings to the table for the Thundering Herd? Russ, I'll throw this one to you.
Yeah, so he was at the pinnacle of where he could reach as a coordinator. Had the respect of everybody in the country as a defensive coordinator. He was on short lists all the time. Every time there would be an opening, they would say, you know, I'd like to see Tony Gibson. It was mentioned at West Virginia. It was mentioned here at Marshall before and elsewhere throughout the country. So now he finally gets the chance. He's a West Virginia guy, so he's bringing his family home. He is from southern West Virginia in a town called Van, and I'd say an hour to an hour and a half, depending, to get over to Marshall from there. And now he is home and getting his first shot. And what he said in the press conference is, it's going to be my last stop. he wants to end his career here. So he's not coming here to say, well, I want to cut my teeth as a head coach and then go elsewhere. He wants to be here for a long time. We're excited for that. I think the fan base is too.
Yeah, I know the fan base is excited because Tony Gibson's a guy that Herd fans have known about literally for decades. It goes back far before North Carolina State and his tenure there. He was a very high productive defensive coordinator up in Morgantown before that, and in their heyday, in their former heyday when Rich Rod was there before, and now he's back in Morgantown, and now Tony's leading the Thundering Herd. It just kind of seems like the right place and right time for Tony to have this job. Like, we are extremely thrilled to have him as our head coach. And you asked, like, what does he bring to the table? Number one, he's a football guy, man. Mm-hmm. Like, he eats, sleeps, and breathes it. You can just tell he's a football guy, but he's one of us, and we've said this many times, like, you can have an idea of what it's like to be from West Virginia and what it means to come back home, but we know as West Virginia folks what that really means. And he's one of us. He's a dude just like us. And he's thrilled to have his family closer back together. And they've just taken Huntington by storm. They've bought in 1,000,000% and breathed new life, which might be an odd thing to say, but breathed new life into a program that is a defending conference champion. You wouldn't think you might need to do that, but there's a different vibe in Huntington, West Virginia right now.
Katie, when you talk about that, I think of Wolf of Wall Street, and they're like, one of us, one of us. Mm-hmm. That's what I picture, just a whole bunch of Thundering Herd
fans. It probably happened. That's probably happened. He's the right guy for this time. I don't know how to better articulate that. I don't know that there is a more ideal candidate to land in Huntington, West Virginia than Tony Gibson right here, right now.
Yeah, and one final thing that I'll say that I should have said earlier, but I know people that have known him for decades. Someone who might as well have been my brother was on a football team where he was the coach, and it's something that you always hear about him is he is a hard worker, but he is also extremely genuine. There's no coach speak. There's no smoke blown. It's like what you see with Tony Gibson is what he says. That's the truth. And people love him. And again, that's why he recruits so well. That's why he has the respect of all the coaches and the fan bases that he's with, is because he does not put on any smoke and mirrors. It's just Tony Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, as it often happens when you get a new head coach, that means new assistants, new coordinators. Marshall's no different in that regard, as Tony Gibson brings in OC Rod Smith, who was previously the OC and quarterbacks coach at Jacksonville State the past 3 seasons. He was also interim head coach once Rich Rod left for West Virginia. Now, prior to Jacksonville State, he spent time at Virginia and Illinois. Katie, can you describe the type of offense that Coach Gibson plans to run, or that Coach Smith plans to run at Marshall?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of heavy emphasis on the run. You can see that in the stat book from Jacksonville State the past number of years. We've talked about that on our show. Herd fans should expect to see a very run-first, run-centric offense. But I think you can categorize this, or really maybe not categorize, you can describe it by saying it's a pro-style offense with modern adaptations, right? You're going to see a lot out of the shotgun. You're going to see sometimes under the center. It is a run-first mentality, and you're going to see lots of power run, zone run, play action, things like that. But everything is predicated on the run. He uses the run to set up everything else, and he loves to play with tempo, right? That's something that we think in Huntington we've been missing a number of years. We've loved seeing the Herd play fast. We feel like, by and large, they're better when they can play fast. You're also going to see a lot of movement out of the quarterbacks, right? They need to be versatile athletes. This is not a Tom Brady offense where we want you to drop back and pass. You're going to need to be able to live and die by the read option at times. You're also going to need to be able to be very, very accurate with those short to mid-range throws. This relies a lot on quick reads and quick throws rather than a whole lot of downfield passing. We'll see that when opportunities allow, but it's going to be a run-first offense, we believe. And to that note, you're all outside of the quarterback, who's critical to, let's face it, every offense. It doesn't matter what you're running. Running backs and tight ends in this offense seem to be pretty critical, because they have to be able to not only run the football, tight ends have to be able to block effectively, but you're going to need to be able to utilize both of those position groups as pass catchers in that short to mid-range pass game. So to sum it all up, it's a system built to be adaptable to the player's talents, but also to be flexible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a couple of key points about Rod Smith and Tony Gibson is they were college teammates, and then they were coaches together at different stops as well. So both of them have been under Rich Rodriguez, on multiple occasions, and their friendship goes back, obviously, 30 years or thereabouts. So they are highly familiar with each other. The other thing about Rod Smith is it has always been said that Rod Smith's offense is great, but Rich Rodriguez actually has the keys, and he's the one that has been calling a lot of the plays. Well, now Rod gets his own chance to come to Marshall, have full autonomy with this offense. It's his. He can do whatever he wants. He's not going to be in that shadow anymore, and I expect it to be an absolute electric offense that he will run. KD and I just talked about this on something that hasn't aired yet, but 3,500 yards last year for Jacksonville State on the ground, 51 touchdowns on the ground. You're going to see a lot of scoring. You're going to see a lot of yards put up, points, yards. I mean, it's just going to be a very, very high explosive offense.
All right, Russ, you mentioned it. It all starts with the quarterback, so let's head over to that room. Every quarterback who took a snap last season has moved on, so the room's going to have a new look in 2025. The staff has hit the portal and brought in some transfers. I assume it was a true quarterback Royal Rumble this spring. Russ, how did the quarterbacks look in the spring?
Well, it looked to me like the guy that transferred from Syracuse, and he had been somewhere else before, but Carlos Del Rio Wilson kind of separated himself. He looked to be the one that was getting the most snaps with the ones to start the game, but during the game as well, it showed why. He seemed to have poise, command of this offense. He is very athletic and will be able to run a lot. He also has the arm to make those throws and go over the top once the run opens it up for all this stuff, play action, or they start cheating up to stop the run. He can handle that as well. Zion Turner was also very promising in the game. Ja'Kai Long got a lot more reps with the twos or the threes, so it was hard to gauge his production because, the offensive line, the receivers, the running backs that he was with were not the starters as well. So Del Rio Wilson, to me, out of the spring game, looked like he would be the starter. This being still in June, that's what we're going with. Fall practice, maybe it will be different.
Katie, for those not familiar with Carlos Del Rio Wilson's game, how would you describe it?
Well, I think the first thing you're going to notice about Del Rio Wilson is that 6'2", 215-pound frame that he's going to be playing with, right? So that's a pretty good frame to be taking every snap, or if you're QB1. So that makes you kind of a tough tackle. You're a fairly big-bodied guy. We know he's very, very athletic. He's a superb runner, and Russ mentioned he's got well above average arm strength. So you've got a true dual-threat quarterback here who's mechanically sound, I should add. And he does have a good pocket presence, but in this offense, you're going to need to have more than a pocket presence. And I think that's where Del Rio Wilson begins to shine because of that ability to scramble, not even if something breaks down, but just on a design run, let's say, or if the pass play's not there and the coverage lapses and there just happens to be a seam. You might see him take advantage of that in a really big way. So you've got a true dual threat, I feel like, and Russ is right. Right now, if the season started tomorrow, it feels like Del Rio Wilson would be the solid number one QB1, as it were. But let's face it, man. This kid coming out of high school was very highly recruited. He committed to the University of Florida. He was projected to be a Power 5 starter. Lands in Syracuse, and now with all that talent, comes to Huntington, West Virginia. And we had pretty good luck with the portal last year, didn't we? I mean, Braylon Braxton came in and, yes, he moved on, but he came in and not even in a complete season of being a starting quarterback was the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year. So the portal has been kind to the herd in the last year or so from the quarterbacks in the portal. So we'll see if we can repeat that success in a very, very run-friendly offense for a quarterback.
And Russ, you talked about Zion Turner. For those not familiar, how would you describe his game or playing style?
It is very athletic. He can tuck it and run. He's got good vision, lateral movement. It's almost like having a shifty running back out there, but he has the ability to throw the ball as well. We faced him in the Myrtle Beach Bowl in 2022 when he was at UConn. So I got to see him in person in that game, and he had a good arm. Since then, he went down to Jacksonville State, so he's kind of familiar with this offense already, and he transferred up here. Again, I think if something happens to Del Rio Wilson or playing dictates that Zion Turner gets into the game, I think that we're still going to be in good hands. He's obviously going to know the playbook. He's obviously going to be familiar, and he's got the athletic talent.
Well, you guys have got me pretty excited about the running game. So let's head over to the running back room. And just like the quarterbacks, the Herd lose every running back carry from last season with the graduation of Jordan Houston and Ethan Payne, while Gray and Turner have hit the portal. The staff brought in transfers, some in the first cycle, some in the second. For the guys that were there in the spring, how did this room look as a whole?
Room looked pretty good. It's always going to be a work in progress up until that first game week. And even then, I'm not sure we're going to know exactly what we have, because when are you going to face a defense like the University of Georgia for the remainder of the season in the Sun Belt? You're not. So we might not get an actual true depiction of what this offense is until we're into the season by a game or two. But the room as a whole looks pretty good. We were talking running backs, amongst ourselves there, I don't know, a couple of days ago, and we were starting to break it down. And yeah, it was a rough, portal cycle for the Herd to lose AJ Turner and his 800 and some plus yards. And had he not got injured, he would have been well over 1,000-yard rusher. And Ethan Payne meant so much to this offense, and so did Jordan Houston, from not only a running ability, but also a pass catching, blocking, leadership, all those things. Right now, you have to break in a whole new room. There's a lot of talent, right? They get Michael Allen from UNLV, who was formerly at NC State, so there's some familiarity there with Tony Gibson, even though it's on the other side of the ball. Tony Mathis Jr. comes our way from Houston, formerly at WVU, where he put up 500 and some yards several years ago. Then you get the guy that I'm personally most kind of excited about, because he's put in the work and has some statistics to show for it just last season. And that's McNeese State transfer Joshawn Barbie. Smaller statured guy, 5'9", 181, but he had over 800 yards last year, 8 touchdowns on the ground, 8 more through the air. If that doesn't say, hey, I'm here to thrive in this offense, I don't really know what does. And then a guy that I know Russ is high on, he may even talk about here, Justin Williams-Thomas, comes to us from Cal, but was a transfer from Tennessee to Cal, coming out of high school. His offer list was a who's who of college football. So dinged up the past couple of years. So this is a kind of what I'm calling a show me year for some of these guys. They're here to prove that they've got what it takes. And overall, I like what the room is. I can't tell you right now if we've notched up or notched down, because we just haven't seen it and how it all plays. But on paper, it looks pretty intriguing. I'll tell you that.
Russ, you talked about the room and all the, we haven't talked about it. Hasn't been aired yet. We talked about all those rushing yards. You talked about all the touchdowns. How does Rod Smith plan to deploy these running backs in 2025?
That's a good question, but I think all signs are going to point toward what they did in 2023. They had 5 different 85 plus attempt guys. So the 5th most carries on the team still got 85 carries. I think you're going to see a running back by committee. You're at least going to see 3 with a lot of carries through here. And what that will give is fresh legs, not only for every game, but fresh legs throughout the season. You know, not having to take those hits for those feature backs that are doing 25 to 30 carries a game that just get beat up. You know how this position is. And I think what you're going to see is you can bring in someone with a little more power, someone with a little more catching ability out of the backfield, someone with a little bit more burst of speed. All of them are going to bring their own little unique twist on this running game, but you'll just be able to feed the hot hand or put it in for what that particular series calls for. You know, if you're down and you got to throw a lot, I imagine you're going to go with the guy that blocks the best and receives well out of the backfield. Just definitely which flavor are you going to have and which one are you going to go with? And I think that we're going to see a lot of carries split by 3 to 4 different guys.
Now, Russ, Katie talked about some of the guys, Alan Mathis, Barbie, Justin William Thomas. How would you describe like the skill sets of this backfield? Like you said, we're going to be try to utilize a lot of different guys, and they've got a lot of different skill sets. Is there any that you would like to highlight?
Yeah, Joshawn Barbie, he at McNeese, he has already put up those stats. Like KD and I have talked to each other. He has done it. He's proven it. These other guys are kind of like what KD said, are in a show me year. Some of them have shown things in the past, but they've had injuries, and now they've got to come back and show it. But Joshawn Barbie has been right there. He's done it through the air. He's very versatile catching the ball out of the backfield. He's 5'9". He's more shifty and speedy. In the spring game, he looked very, very good. I look for Michael Allen to be one of those jack of all trades guys, but he's 215 pounds, and so is Williams Thomas. Both of them 215 pounds at running back that you can put in, and when you need to get some yards, 215 pounds at running back helps a lot. So I think that you're going to see Barbie with the shiftiness, the speed, the ability to be explosive, catching the ball out of the backfield, and these other guys showing the power with the speed. But, you know, being like in Williams Thomas, who KD mentioned, it was a who's who. I mean, you take any kind of power team that you want to pick, and most likely they offered him when he was coming out of high school. So he is one of these guys that originally all the big teams across the country thought, hey, he could be our feature back. So I look for that to carry over and have him do some of that. And you'll have to forgive me here. I'm battling about 90 million aerial insects with these lights coming on. So if I'm smacking around, it's not at your viewers or anything. I'm just trying to live over here.
KD, let's say week 1, you got a big game against Georgia. Who is the first running back that gets a carry?
That's a good question, right? My gut, we kind of talked about this too. My gut says it'll be Tony Mathis, but it could just as easily be Michael Allen or Joshawn Barbie, right? Because who trots out there? I mean, talking about being a run-heavy offense, of course, that doesn't mean that the first play of the season is going to be a run play. So whoever the first running back that runs out there might not get the first carry, but it feels like it might be Tony Mathis to me. And the reason I say that is because he's the senior, and you don't transfer somewhere and not expect to play, right? Doesn't mean he's going to be the game 1 first play starter. But I feel like if you've got 1 year to go, and obviously you want to make a run at the next level and show that you can play at the next level, you're going to go pick a destination that is going to allow you to feature your skill set. And we know this offense is going to give these guys an opportunity to feature their skill sets. And we also think that we're not going to see any one guy getting 20, 30 carries a game, more like anywhere between 8 and 12. So you got to maximize your opportunities. But I feel like for that reason, because he's the senior, that he will get the first carry of 25.
Well, let's turn our attention to the new look wide receiving room. You know that meme of Will Smith and French Prince with he's just looking around the room and all the furniture was stolen. I think that's Brian Robinson in this scenario. Robinson is a lone returner who registered a catch for the Herd last season. He had 8 catches for 82 yards. KD, what are your expectations from this wide receiving room?
I'm hoping that they are just serviceable. I'm not looking for anybody to be a blow me out of the water wide receiver. And typically in years past, I was hoping to have that 1,000-yard receiver, that deep threat. I don't need that this year. I don't think I'm going to need to rely on that, right? I need a serviceable stable of wide receivers who are really good in space and that are really good short to mid range, right? And just about any of them, if they get wide open and bust the coverage, they're going to be able to catch a ball and run in the end zone, right? That's football 101. You don't really need that. But the first thing, if you're looking, right, you're going to look at the roster and you're going to go, ooh, right now, if you went to the Herd Zone roster, which isn't terribly accurate at this point, but if you went and looked at it, you went, man, this is kind of a smaller statured room. There's not a lot of the tallest guy on the roster is 6'3", right? If that tells you anything, there's, I don't know, 1, 2, maybe a dozen wide receivers on the roster. Tallest guy is 6'3", and he's the only guy that's 6'3". So that tells me that you're looking at a lot of possession type receivers that need to be able to make moves in space. Not a lot of outside deep threats, what you would stereotypically think of as the 6'4" guy, just outside threat. So I think it's obviously a new look wide receiving room, but I think it's built to maximize what this offense needs it to do, right? So you might see 4 or 5 guys with 3 or 4, 500 yards rather than 1 or 2 guys with 800 or 900 yards.
Russ, did you notice either quarterback targeting one guy or a position, whether it's a slot or the outside, more than the others? And did anyone stand out to you?
We had some of those that stood out to me were like a wide receiver reverse to Deuce White. And he's one of these smaller guys, very shifty, speedy. Look for him to, be that slot guy or whatever. But Antonio Harmon as the big guy, 6'3", he was a tight end in the SEC, and then was going to be back as a wide receiver. He was a wide receiver, moved to tight end, was getting ready to be moved back to wide receiver, and he didn't play last year. I'm assuming because of an injury, because they were hyping him up to be real big, and then he transfers to us where he's going to be a wide receiver. So he has a history of blocking. He has a history of being a vertical threat as a wide receiver. I like to think he's going to be one of those hybrid guys that maybe you could put him in as an undersized tight end, but if a linebacker gets on him, he's going to blow past him. We also picked up, so he was not in the spring game because this was just 2-3 weeks ago, Adrian Norton, second team All-MAC from Akron. And we feel like he may be wide receiver 1 or he may be wide receiver 2. We feel like we picked up a starter with that recent transfer. Wasn't here for the spring, couldn't tell you about any kind of Turner to him or Del Rio Wilson to him, anything like that. But come fall ball, I think he will be one of the big targets that they go for.
Mm-hmm.
Now, KD, 95% of the receptions are gone from 2024. Who do you feel leads this teams in receptions and yards in 2025?
I don't think we've talked about him yet. I think we're getting ready to talk about him. If that is a foreshadowing of what's about to be discussed. So if you want me to hold that thought, I'd be glad to, or I can just tell you right now.
You know what? Why don't we just move on over to the tight end group?
Okay.
And with the coaching changes, what have you been able to learn in terms of how the tight ends will be utilized?
Well, I mentioned it earlier in the offense breakdown, right? I think they're critical to what this offense does. They're going to have to block. If you're a run-first offense, you got to block. Fortunately, we've got some guys that do that pretty well. Primarily Toby Payne, the known entity amongst Herd fans, amongst the Sun Belt Conference. But the tight ends are going to be asked to do I don't want to say do a lot, but they're going to have to be able to do it all. They're going to have to be able to block. They're going to have to, pick up the pass rush. They're going to have to also obviously run block, but they're going to have to be able to make catches in traffic and in space. And sometimes they're going to be forced to make those critical catches that might be the difference between a drive continuing or stalling. Right. And we in Huntington love our tight ends. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where Marshall's top two receivers were both tight ends. It wasn't that long ago. So we really have a history of high level tight end play. And just about any Herd fan can run down the lineage of these guys going back all the way to the MAC and before. Some can do it for you in the Southern Conference. And I think we have, like I mentioned, Toby Payne. We know what we have in him. As long as he stays healthy, we know what we have in him. And we've got some youngsters that are going to have to try to elevate that game this year. They weren't asked to do anything really last year, and they're going to be asked to do quite a bit this year.
Well, KD, I just asked you, who do you feel leads this team in receptions and yards in 2025? It's your time to shine.
I think it's going to be Toby Payne. He was vastly criminally underutilized last year and still had 6 touchdowns through the air. I mean, just an absolute nightmare for defenses because he's that guy that can outrun and out leverage a linebacker, but he's also too daggone tall and athletic to be you're generally covered effectively by one defensive back. If he's going to be the point of emphasis in the passing game, which a lot of us think, he should be one of the top 2 weapons, so goes the passing offense. He's just that good. He's an all-conference caliber tight end, and had he not gotten injured a couple of years ago, you would already know what we have in Toby Payne. It's just because we are in Huntington and follow the Herd so closely that we know, but if he had a strong season 2 years ago and was utilized a little bit more yet last year, we wouldn't be really having this discussion. You'd probably have framed that question like, does Toby Payne lead the Herd in receptions this year? And I'd be like, yeah, I think he does. Yeah.
So the offensive line returns only one man who started every game in 2024, right guard Jalen Slappy. The room also returns Tariq Montgomery, who's called upon at left tackle toward the middle of the season. We saw other positional rooms change due to transfers. This room, however, our losses due to graduation, and none can be bigger than first-team all-conference center Logan Osborne. Russ, how do you feel about this group heading into the summer?
Before I answer that, I'd like to briefly just mention something about tight ends. During that spring game, Tracy Stevens also seemed to be utilized a lot. Del Rio Wilson went to him a couple of times. He made some great catches. He was good at blocking. So I look to see him in the mix as well. And the only other tight end that is currently on Herd Zone's roster is Sean Rouse, who, like Toby Payne, is also a local kid. He's even more local at 15 minutes from the stadiums where he went to high school. And he came here as an offensive lineman. So he has slimmed down. They've got him listed right now as 6'3", 265. But he was up around the 3 bills mark, as an offensive lineman and everything. So he should have the blocking down pat. Look for him around the goal line stuff, or when they are going run heavy and they need to, put 2 tight ends in and one's going to be a blocker or whatever. You should see a heavy dose of Sean Rouse, considering he was a tackle guard or whatever up until, a few months back. Now, speaking about the offensive line, I am extremely happy that Jalen Slappy came back. I think that gives us some continuity. I feel like he will be the anchor on this offensive line. He has been a high performer, just got a bug in the eye. He has been the past, I think it was mid-season in 2023 that he became the starter, and he's not basically given up many snaps since then. He's that guy that you can count on. I am also looking at 6'9" McDuffie at left tackle. I think you can't teach 6'9", and we were really good with what he did in the spring game. He seemed to just be that guy that long arms and everything's hard to get around him. So I think that we're going to have some guys that played a lot last year, maybe not in a starting scenario, but got a lot of snaps. Now they're going to go into being a starter, and I think that we're going to be a lot more okay at offensive line than people may think because of what we lost to graduation.
Mm-hmm.
So, KD, if this line turns out to just crush it this year, it's because who stepped up big?
I don't know if it's a fair way to say that because he's already stepped up big, but it's because Jalen Slappy continues to develop and become put himself on a path to being one of the all-time greats. He's been so good as a youngster, and now he's getting into that upperclassman type era of his career. So it's not to say that he hasn't already stepped up big. I think he just continues to get better. But if you're looking for some guys that might be new to the program, I think it's Tariq Montgomery, who started halfway through the year. Now it's his time to solidify. We're going to talk about Tyler McDuffie, who Russ mentioned before. Not just 6'9", but 365 pounds to go with that 6'9" frame. So you're talking about some really big bodies. We did our offensive line preview, and I wish I had my notes in front of me because I always love doing the average height and weight of our projected starting five. But it was pretty big, man. I felt like it was like 6'5" and 325 or something like that along those lines. But
another guy that KD doesn't have it in front of him here, but Sean Marcus Adams, 6'3", 348. So 348 and 365, and I think they might be on the same side. That's a big side.
Yeah, that plays, right? So we sat here a year ago and were concerned about our offensive line because it had so many transfers. It turned out to be a huge strength of the team overall. And I think we are you can't discount, like you said, losing Logan Osborne, all-time great, campus legend player. You can't discount that, but having Jalen Slappy back is just like having Logan Osborne back the year before, and I'm just not concerned. I think we might be as good or better because of the style of offense we're going to run. So I feel pretty good about the O-line.
Yeah, I think that we're going to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand very quickly. If it's not a running play, it's going to be quick passes, slants, attacking and gashing instead of the 7-step drop and, going back for the deep passes and things. Sure, we're going to do that at times, but I feel like we are going to make it a much easier way to go for this offensive line with the style of play that we have. I do think that we're going to have to, if we're going to be bringing in running backs and changing them out and keeping them fresh, well, these offensive linemen have to go too deep, and we have to be able to trade them out a lot too, because 365 and 343 or 348, whatever it was, that's a lot to ask for them, is bring in a fresh set of legs for running back, but leave those guys out there with a lot of run blocking and running down the field. So I feel like we're going to see 8 to 10 regular offensive linemen in here, keep them fresh, quick passes, lots of runs, and really take care of them.
All right, KD, if you had to pick one offensive player to have a breakout type season in 2025, who you got?
if I got to pick one, I want it to be our quarterback. I want it to be Carlos Del Rio Wilson. I want a repeat of a Sun Belt Conference Offensive Player of the Year type performance. That's who I'm going to go with because that's what I feel like we're going to need first and foremost. There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to raise a lot of eyebrows out of this Herd offense, especially since everybody's just casting us to the basement of the Sun Belt East Division. Like, good. I want you to do that because there's a lot of guys that are going to pop on the radar, as it were, for a lot of our conference mates. And it all has to start with the quarterback. If that doesn't work, then the offense really doesn't work. And I think we got ourselves a really good one. We just need to have him have that breakout year that we know he's capable of having.
Russ, if you were to pick one offensive player to have a breakout type season in 2025, who you got?
I'm going to go with the running back, and I'm going to say Joe Sean Barbie, and that's totally different. I don't want to give away, but KD and I have an unaired look at our running back room, and it was so difficult to choose because of what we talked about earlier of how we see all the sharing of the workload. But I'm going to say Joe Sean Barbie just because of the dynamic ability to pass, catch, to run. I think it's him.
All right, guys. Just like the offensive side of the ball, there's a new coach on the defense side too. Shannon Morrison is the new DC. This is his fourth stint with the Herd. He was there in 1995. You guys probably saw him walking around campus towards the end of his time there. 1997, he was a grad assistant. 2005 to 2008, coached the linebackers and safeties. And then 2021 and through 2023, also coached the linebackers. He also played at Marshall and helped them to their first ever FCS national championship in 1992. His previous DC experience comes from Southeastern Missouri from 2001 to 2003, Lehigh in 2004, and Bowling Green in 2009. KD, can you describe the defensive scheme that Coach Morrison plans to run there at Marshall?
We know that this will be more the Tony Gizon type scheme of the 3-3-5, something that we are not used to seeing in Huntington, but it is a very versatile and exciting type defense for us to kind of get our eyes on. But first and foremost, let me talk about Shannon Morrison because he's our guy, man. Like, he is a Herd guy. We love the dude. We feel like he was kind of robbed of getting a conference championship ring last year because he was one of four coaches that was let go at the end of the 2023 season. And it really rubbed us kind of the wrong way because we didn't feel like he deserved that. He was the linebackers coach at that time, and his units performed extremely well. In fact, we put two guys into the NFL that are still playing off of his linebacking core. Two of the starting three went to the league, and they're still there. So I think he caught a raw deal, and I'll scream it from the rooftops. I love to have Shannon Morrison back. I love the fact that he is the defensive coordinator, and we have really close friends, Russ and I do, that when he was on staff before, they said this guy could be your next head coach. That's how highly thought of that he is. Mm-hmm. So to have him back as a defensive coordinator back in Huntington, he is cut from the same cloth of another coach we're going to talk about undoubtedly here in a little bit, Ralph Street. Both Herd guys, man. They performed at a high level here. They were champions here. They know what it takes to be a champion in Huntington, West Virginia. They've run out of the same tunnels. So when they're coaching these guys up, they lived it, man. It's not just another stop for them. This is home for them, and it means something here. So now back to the 3-3-5. That's what you can expect to see. And of course, anybody that's familiar with the 3-3-5, it's a very, very hybrid, amorphous type defense where your secondary and your linebackers kind of do a lot more than in a normal 4-3. Obviously, you got to pick up the slack for that defensive line being down a guy. So that takes a certain type of athlete to man the second level in the linebacking core. But we mentioned this also, Russ and I just talking to ourselves. the trio, we'll get into that, of course, but the trio of coaches that you have kind of on that second level between Tony Gibson, a head coach who's made a career out of linebackers, and then Jake Ellsworth, who is our new linebackers coach from the Tony Gibson coaching tree, and Shannon Morrison. This defense is going to be built to last, man. It is from top to bottom. It is filled with unbelievable athletes that men of that size should not be able to move in that way. You know what I mean? Like 300-pound guys should not be able to chase me down. And I feel like we have a lot of those guys on this roster. It's going to be a very, very exciting defensive season for the Herd.
And you talked about it earlier. Now, like it's hitting me. You talked about how Tony Gibson, he's one of us. And you talked about like, hey, you know, Morrison got kind of a raw end of the deal. And what's he like? He didn't have to bring him back. He's like, hey, I need you here. That's huge.
Well, it's because he's a damn good coach. That's why it has maybe something to do with being a Herd alum. But first and foremost, you got to be able to coach, right? Yeah. You don't make it to this level of college football if you're just a guy that knows a guy. You got to be able to coach, and Shannon Morrison is one hell of a coach. And if you wanted to try to sum him up in a word, I would choose intense. But it's not like a intimidating intensity. It's like an energetic intensity. Like the dude, when he's on the field, he's all business, but he's the right kind of business, man. I can't explain it. You got to be around the guy to understand it. And I haven't been around him a whole lot, but when I have been, man, it's just he's got an aura and a presence that just kind of fits in Huntington. You know, he's known and he knows people. Like, I don't know how to explain it. You bring the guy back because he deserved to be there. That's why.
Well, let's dig into the position rooms and start with the guys up front along that defensive line. The trend of lost production continues on the defensive side of the ball. The entire starting defensive line and several rotational guys are gone. And as you might imagine, there's a lot of new faces for the Herd in 2025 in this defensive line room. Russ, how did this defensive line shape up in the spring, and did anyone stand out to you?
Well, so we went from a 4-3 with two edge rushers and two big body defensive linemen to now you're going to be in that 3-3-5. So you have to have a nose tackle that is just a mass. And we picked up a couple of them. Tyus Martin, 6'4", 330. And let's see, the other one, Michaelan Warren, who is already here, 6'2", 352. Naquan Crowder, 6'3", 320. We picked up Katron Evans, 6'3", 335. Jaleel Rivera Harvey was here, transferred out to Western Kentucky, now transferred back in, and he's 6'3", 300. So we've got all these big bodies here that are still here. But remember what we had last year was Mike Green, who was, you know, Mr. Do Everything, Mr. All-American, should have been on everybody's unanimous All-American list, now playing for the Baltimore Orioles. He's probably good enough an athlete to do that, but the Baltimore Ravens. I think that you're going to see a totally different defensive line because it has to be. It's not – last year it seemed that the focus was built around the defensive line, and now it's going to be the linebackers and the defensive backs in this faster 3-3-5 stack that's going to be attacking people. But there's a couple of players, I've already mentioned some of the big bodies just because of like the nature that you have to have that in a 3-3-5. If you've only got three down linemen, you know, they have to be big, right? We're going to have a guy on the edge that is a local kid, Charleston area, so about an hour down the road. Braden Ward, 6'6", 237. Tall guy, looks real lean, unrelenting motor. He cut his teeth a little bit last year. Remember, you've got Mike Green out there playing. It's hard to take him off the field and put, you know, someone that was a redshirt freshman in last year. But Ward is the kind of guy that was finishing first in every drill in practice. He's the kind of guy that just screams athleticism, just screams I'm not going to stop. And I look for him to be big off the edge this year with that height and speed. I think that it's going to be a good defensive line, but you're not going to have the dominance that you had last year because you're down a player, but you're also down Mike Green. You know, Mike Green does not grow on trees. You and I talked about Mike Green a lot last year on this very show. KD and I kept saying, Mike Green, learn the name, Mike Green. He's going to be big, Mike Green. Mike Green's not coming back through that door. He's not running out of that tunnel. So it's going to be a drastically different defensive line.
Mm-hmm. And if people listening aren't familiar with Mike Green, and you talked about he's not coming through that tunnel, second round talent, Baltimore
First
Ravens.
round talent. First round talent.
Yeah.
First round talent went in the second round. Sun Belt Player of the Year, first team All Conference, defensive lineman. He had 59 pressures by himself, 17 sacks last season. Obviously, you talk about Russ, you talk about Ward, kind of replacing a portion of that. Is there anybody else in this room that you can think will create that pressure? I know in a 3-3-5, it kind of moves everything to the linebackers a little bit, and you're mainly plugging gaps, but. Is there any other person that you're looking to create pressure?
If we do, it's going to be a surprise to me. And it's not because we don't have anybody that is good to do it. We're just talking about a generational talent in Mike Green and the production that he had. It's going to be hard to replace. You said even a portion, but I'm sitting here thinking, man, if someone got half of the sacks that he got last year and half of the pressures that he got last year, and not just that, but he got that because he was double and triple teamed at sometimes, and he still got that. So that just opened up the rest of the defensive line or a linebacker or a defensive back to come in, and they got a sack or a tackle for loss, or they put a pressure on the quarterback. So it's not just the stats that he had, it's because they had to put all their attention on him. If you asked any offensive coordinator or head coach going into the game against Marshall, were they aware and planning for Mike Green, they were going to tell you yes, and that includes Ohio State, because Ohio State tried to back up a truck and pay Mike Green to come there last year. And he turned him down and stayed with Marshall, and then he went up there and took it to a guy that got drafted in the NFL at Ohio State and made him look silly and went around him untouched to sack the quarterback.
Russ is getting sacked by the bugs right now.
Yeah, pretty sure I'm in a Godzilla movie right now.
Well, this linebacking group is going to be huge for the Thundering Herd this year, and the group returned 0 tackles from 2024. Clark is the only guy who saw snaps for the Herd, and he got into one game and saw 3 snaps. As you can imagine, the staff hit the portal, brought in some guys. KD, how did the linebacking group look in the spring?
Feel really, really good about the linebacking unit because of what I mentioned before. This is Tony Gibson's position group of emphasis. This is what this 3-3-5 has to be good at in order to make it freaking run well. You bring a coach from NC State, Jake Ellsworth, who's in his first year as a position coach anywhere. So he's from the Tony Gibson tree, as it were. And then, of course, you got Shannon Morrison. That's the trio I was talking about. This is a lot of heads working together to make these linebackers kind of gel and get going. And from the surface, if you're looking up and you're going, yeah, but you guys lost Jaden Yates, a near 100 tackle performance last year, who hits the portal and gets the SEC offer. Yeah, I get that. And Landon Watson, who leaves and gets the other SEC offer. I'm fully aware of that, right? We had star-studded linebackers last year, but Russ just mentioned it. You got Mike Green on that defensive line. Those guys are great. I'm not saying they're not great linebackers. They really are. But you had a first-round NFL talent that was sucking up so much of the attention on an offensive line that these guys oftentimes had an extra extra bit of room to make a move or maybe rush the passer or to disrupt the offensive play calling. So it's a different defense altogether, right? We talked about this ad nauseum so far, and they hit the portal, and this was among some of the first positions to commit to Tony Gibson. In fact, the very first commit to Tony Gibson was Jalen Parker, a linebacker from NC State. And then shortly thereafter, another linebacker from NC State, guy by the name of Cannon Lewis, makes a commitment. He's a local kid, right? He's from Cabell Midland High School and right down the road, 15 minutes, and we get one from Jack State. So some Jacksonville State familiarity comes along with Jabril Al-Amin. There's a lot of guys. We haven't even talked about the guy that we think is going to be the most impactful. I'm just saying, from a bird's eye view, many fans might think, man, we lost a lot of talent. We're not going to be as good. We did lose a lot of talent. I think we're going to be better at linebacker than we were a year ago. The stat sheet might not show it. You might not have a 100-tackle guy or something like that, but they're going to be more impactful in more parts of the defensive game plan than just see ball, tackle football, right? I think we'll be better overall from the linebacker position.
Luke,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, Luke, before I talk about the linebackers, I did leave out a name. I thought I was listing him off there, but Jacarius Clayton didn't play much last year, but he transferred to us from Mississippi State. And, he was kind of the understudy and behind Mike Green. And I look for him to help replace a little bit of that along with Braden Ward and be the other edge guy. Sorry, I just didn't want to leave him out.
No.
Linebackers, Jave Gilmore, also from Mississippi State, 6'4", 235. I mean, we've used this phrase before, but that plays. 6'4", 235, recruited to be an SEC outside linebacker. You're going to see a lot of speed at 6'4", 235, and that is scary to me. He absolutely took over an entire series during the spring game. And it was one of those, not like, he got 3 tackles during this series. He dominated and was the best player on the field 3 snaps in a row from an outside linebacker situation. He got what would have been a sack that they called a sack, but, there's no contact to the quarterback in this situation. Also blew up another play and another tackle for loss, but he just seemed to explode there with that, again, SEC speed for an outside linebacker, and the dude's 6'4", 235. KD listed a bunch of names there. We look to see a lot of rotation in this group, but we also like what we said about the defensive line with going from 4 to 3. Remember, last year we were in a 4-2-5, so we're going from 2 to 3. You're going to gain a linebacker. You're going to gain a lot more production, and this should be a very good, productive linebacking group considering that.
And Katie, you talked about losing a lot on the defensive side. Like when I was going through this, it's like, obviously Mike Green, and I just talked about how much he made an impact there. And then here in the linebacking group, you've got first-team all-conference Jaden Yates. He's not walking through the tunnel on Saturdays. He's off to Old Miss. So who do you guys look to make an impact for the Herd in 2025? Katie, I'll start with you.
Oh, we're in agreement. We both think it's going to be Jave Gilmore. We talked about it at length, and the guy, 6'4", 235, SEC caliber outside linebacker in a 3-3-5 that's going to give him full free range to showcase his skill set and athleticism. He's the guy, but you're going to need about 5 guys to be impactful, right? We know that. We're going to need about 5 to 6 linebackers to really put up some numbers. I think Jave Gilmore just rises to the top of that heap of linebackers.
Much like the rest of this team, this defensive backfield will look different in 2025. However, there are at least some key rotational returners for this group coming back. Cornerback Jadarius Green McKnight and Deontay Smith. McKnight averaged 41 snaps per game last season, while Smith averaged 18. The staff also added several guys via the portal. Russ, what should we expect from this defensive backfield in 2025?
I think that you're going to see some guys that came in here from the winter and the spring, more so in the winter, that when you see them, you're like, how have they not been a household name yet? And one that just absolutely took over the spring game, Boogie Trotter. And he comes from a lower level school, but this kid and I say kid because I'm getting ready to turn 46 years old, no disrespect to him. But this guy posted that he wanted to win the award for best defensive back in the country. If that doesn't tell you that the kid has some goals and some moxie, and he showed it in the spring game. He had a pick six where he nearly walked into the end zone. He jumped the route so much, it looked like 25 yards ahead of the next closest person to him. But he read that and just boom, picked it up. And again, it looked like prime Deion Sanders jumping a route and just taking it in stride, timed it perfectly. And he just, as his name Trotter, he trotted into the end zone. Daryl Sweeting, Marvay Myers. Oh my goodness. If you've not seen a photo of Marvay Myers, he looks like the Hulk. I mean, the guy at defensive back is put together, and he's a gym rat, man. And the three of them together are going to be good. Jadarius Green McKnight played a lot of safety last year. He was the big body, if you could say that for someone's 198 pounds. I think last year he was rocking closer to 210. I think KD, we were talking about how he had put on a little bit of weight so he could be that strong safety guy that was playing a more hybrid role in a 4-2-5 instead of having three linebackers. He was that guy that was a hybrid kind of linebacker guy. But he looks to be a little more slimmed down so he can go back to the more speed and things like that. Wody, Daytwan Smith, he's back. And we mentioned someone in our breakdown, KD and I, that we haven't mentioned here that was during linebackers, unless I missed it, KD. But Kerryon Martin comes back to us, and he was a safety here. He went to Youngstown State last year. He was a safety there. He's coming back and will be an outside linebacker, and KD thinks more of a rover in this 3-3-5. So you could pencil him in as a linebacker or as a safety up here in this defensive backfield that we're talking about. So there's some familiarity here, but we are going to have just some real dynamics. But I've left out a name, and there's a reason, because I wanted it to stand off by itself. And I'm not saying this guy is going to be the best of the bunch. I think, the three that I mentioned up front have a very good chance of being that. But Daniel Harris comes to us from UAB, 6'4", 205 as a safety, 6'4", supposedly ran a 4.4 at 6'4", and is going to be a safety. Now, that's listed at 6'4", 205. He told us he's between 6'5" and 6'6". As a safety, running a 4.4.
Rangy.
I'm just saying.
I'm not saying, care. I'm just saying.
I don't care at 6'4", at 6'5", at 6'5.5", whatever. The dude's running a 4.4 is impressive in the defensive backfield in and of itself. But you're talking about going after a jump ball against a 6'4", he would be our tallest receiver from what we said earlier. And he's going to be running neck and neck with these other guys as receivers that are running 4.4 to 4.6, and he's going to be 6'4" doing that. So that is something that I'm looking forward to seeing as well. But I think that we are talented from the bottom to the top in the defensive backfield.
Same. Yeah.
Now KD, this room and the team's obviously going to miss first team all conference safety JJ Roberts. And it's not fair to ask who's the next first team all conference from this room. So I'm going to ask it this way. Russ just went through a lot of different names that he expects to see. If this room is successful and plays above expectation, who is the reason for the success?
It's a couple of guys. Actually, it's more than a couple of guys. I think it's going to be because of strong safety play, not strong safety, but strong, safety play. And that's going to be guys like Kerryon Martin playing a hybrid role, maybe dropping back and playing a little bit of safety. It's going to be Daniel Harris, and it's going to be guys on the outside like Boogie Trotter. They're just freaking dynamic. These guys are some rock star defensive backs. Miles Glover is a stud. Trotter is a stud. I mean, and J.D. McKnight came on really strong at the end of this. If not for J.D. McKnight, we do not go to the conference or to the Sun Belt Conference Championship game. He made the hell of a play against James Madison to get the Herd on the way to the championship. And I was really happy for him because he had struggled in some games leading into that, and it was like, man, is JD ever going to be able to like have his moment? And he picked one of the biggest moments of the season to make that happen for himself. And I think that builds a lot of momentum for him. The fact that he stayed and so many other guys left, I think says a lot about what he feels about our program and how we've stuck behind him even through when he was trying to find his way in this Herd secondary. J.J. Roberts, again, not walking through that door. He's busy walking through doors down in Tampa Bay playing for the Bucks, right? A special talent, an all-time great, a campus legend, all of the accolades. I don't know that we have one of those guys like J.J. They're so rare. But what we do have is about 6 or 8 guys that by committee can form one hell of an athletic, swarming defensive backfield. And I'll take that 10 times out of 10.
Well, Russ, we've done it on the offensive side, so we've got to do it on the defensive side. If you were to pick one defensive player to have a breakout type season in 2025, who you got?
Full stop, JaVale Gilmore. Everything that we said earlier, I just look for him to be explosive. I look for him to take over games at times. And I look for him to be one of those names that people say, why did we not get this guy? Where did he come from? I know that he was here at the SEC, but he didn't get the snaps. And why did he not get this opportunity before? I just feel like he's going to have a special season.
KD, if you were to pick one defensive player to have a breakout type season in 2025, who you got?
Well, I gave you a hell of a lot of good sound bites last year. I think I'm going to give you another one this year. It's JaVale Gilmore. He's going to be on that short list for Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year. And it's not just like what Russ said, like, how did we miss out on this guy? It's the fact that we have a defense that's in place that's going to allow him to maximize his entire skill set. And for as much as we dislike the power leagues and what they do to college sports for the little guy, they still recruit at an extremely high level. So when you can get a guy that's 6'4", 235, moves like he moves, has the ball skills and instincts like he has, and then you throw him into a Tony Gibson, Jake Ellsworth, Shannon Morrison, 3-3-5 defense, bar the frickin' door, because this guy has all the tools to put everybody on notice and be a Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year. Full stop.
That is going to be a great soundbite. I tell you. Russ.
Can you make not a soundbite, but can you do a video thing of me swatting all these bugs that are coming around?
We'll give it a whirl. All right, Russ. How are the special teams looking, and do you have any concerns heading into the summer and the fall?
Yeah, I've got concerns. We lost our kicker, we lost our punter, we lost our long snapper. I think maybe our top 2 or 3 long snappers. We lost our returner. We lost the guy that got seemingly every tackle on special teams, that was just flying down the field at all times and helping with our field position. We lost it all. I mean, you could say that about a lot of groups. We talked about linebackers are bringing back 3 snaps, no plays from quarterback, no yards or attempts from running back. I mean, it hit every position group. But special teams can win and lose ball games. So it's a big concern if you don't have a kicker. So it's that unknown that concerns me right now and makes me give pause and worry. We did add some people and brought some people in, and I ultimately think we'll be okay. But thinking we'll be okay and having confidence because we've seen it is two different things, and we haven't seen it. But we brought in, I hope I'm going to say this, is it Lorcan Quinn?
Lorcan Quinn.
Lorcan comes from Ireland, and he had down at IMG, had a day where he hit 8 for 8 on field goals, one from 69, one from 68. The guy has a leg. Whether that's going to translate during game speed, I don't know, but it just makes you feel good that you get to the 50 before halftime and you've got a chance. That is big to me. He grew up playing a different type of football, more like rugby, and I think he played rugby and soccer, if I'm remembering correctly. But he's intriguing to me, But we're going to have to replace the punter who gave us a lot of inside the 20s and some good field position there. Like I said, replacing that skill position, just going down and getting the tackle or disrupting the guy to where we get it on the 17 instead of the 25 or the 2 on some occasions, with punts and things like that. Return game. We've got a punt returner that we need and a kickoff returner that we need. Who is that going to be? I mean, both of us had our speculations when we did our position group breakdown for special teams, but we're just guessing because we've not seen it. We haven't played a game yet. So there's a lot of concern and a lot of worry. I think we'll be fine. Right now, scared to death.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess I got a question for you, KD, kind of leading into that. Now that spring practice is over, which position group or groups do you think is the most concerning heading into the season?
I mean, if I wanted to cop out and just echo what he said, it would be the special teams, but it's legitimate. You have if the Sun Belt Conference had a special teams player of the year award, it would have been hard. You'd been hard pressed to give it to anybody other than Ian Foster. And now he's down at Southern Miss, and he was usually the first guy down on kick coverage, making the play. He was our star kick returner. He led the league or led the country in kick return yardage last year. I mean, these are big things. Your starting place kicker for a couple of years hit the portal and lands at an ACC school. Your starting punter leaves and goes and ends up at an American school, and you're starting over from scratch essentially. And that's scary because the special teams is a vital part of the game a lot of times. But if you're talking about traditional offense and defense, the one thing I guess that would give me a little cause for pause would be the running back room, because it's so heavily emphasized on what's going to make this offense work. And it's all completely new, but with several key pieces that we think that are returning from injury, and that's the scary part. It's not about the talent of the guys that came in. It's like 2 of the 4 big pieces that we think we're going to see are returning from injury to try to get it done. Otherwise, I feel pretty good up and down the board about where we are right now. And it's still, I still don't think that we might be done. I mean, how is anybody ever done until they start playing games?
Even when the games start, then you're always trying to keep people and people out. People out.
Yeah.
So.
And Luke, if I can answer that same question, I'm taking it a different route. And, I just told you I'm concerned about special teams, but special teams to me is a lower rung of worry because of the more times that the offense or the defense is on the field than special teams. For me, the biggest concern in position group is quarterback, and it's because right now we have an unproven QB1. If he gets beat out, and I'm talking about Del Rio Wilson, we have an unproven new QB1. If he gets beat out and it's Ja'Kai Long, we have a new unproven QB1. Our top three are unproven right now, but especially at Marshall, they haven't really taken a game snap. And you can live and die by quarterback play. And you don't have to put up 3,000 yards and 30 touchdowns through the air to have a good quarterback. Being an on-field general that is directing the offense, knowing when to throw and who to throw it to, maybe calling the audibles at the line of scrimmage, knowing when to hand off or pitch if you're doing options and things like that. That is the concern to me. And I feel like this team may be 2 wins one way or the other, 2 wins or 2 losses one way or the other, depending on how well we do quarterback play. I cannot say that for any other position. I can't say that for special teams. I don't think that it would be a four-game flip one way or the other. I can for QB1.
Now, Russ, Coach Gibson hasn't been there terribly long, but in today's age of NIL, revenue sharing, transfer portal, how has Coach Gibson described Marshall's recruiting philosophy?
Well, he keeps saying people that want to be here, and that was a holdover from the coaches when he said these coaches want to be here. We're talking about Ralph Street, who played here and came back, the lone coach that came back. We're talking about Shannon Morrison. It's his 4th stop here. He played here as well, as we mentioned. Tony Gibson wanted to be here. Well, they look at that the same way in recruiting, that they have brought back a lot of local flavor. We've had, I think if I had to go up and down the lineup, maybe 6, 7 players that we have brought back that were here previously. They transferred back here. So he went out and got people he was familiar with during his recruiting. Even if they never played here, he got them that they were local to here from high school and transferred here with him. He has recruited this area a lot. He's recruited elsewhere a lot, but all of them are players that want to be here. And it seems to me he has brought in some players that you could say is a diamond in the rough or never got the shot that they needed or deserved. And now he's here and says, I'm going to give you the opportunity to come here and ball out. And some players that he's brought in here, they have gotten a shot, but it's been in, like, say, the Southland Conference of the FCS. And now they're coming in and they're getting their shot at the big time. So I think that more than anything, if I had to sum it up in one word, it would be redemption. To where he's saying, we're here, it's a fresh start, it's at Marshall, you can come here and you can win, and I think that we can do it together, but I want you to believe and I want you to come here. And it seems like he has assimilated a good group in here together in a short amount of time. I mean, we're talking about mid-December when he was named, and by March, we had a lot of people that we were like, hey, this is going to shape up to be a good crew.
Now, Katie, I've got a question in the whole grand scheme of NIL and people move in, and now in the G5, it seems if you make an all-conference team, you're getting plucked and going somewhere else. Have you seen Marshall having the access to maybe higher recruits than they would have normally got, just because the P4 teams aren't necessarily taking some of these recruits, and maybe they're not like, oh, I want to go walk on here, there, and Marshall's just got an access to these guys that they maybe didn't have before?
I don't know if I could go that way, right? Like just an access to athletes that we've never had before, because Bobby Pruitt recruited at an unbelievable level in the late 90s. Even after his tenure, and we were in the Mark Snyder era, and Marshall football as a program dipped in their win-loss record, we brought in phenomenal players, guys like Vinnie Curry and Ahmad Bradshaw. Like these are all-time great players. And even when you talk about after that, Doc Holliday really started loading the roster with talent that we hadn't seen like in this concentration year over year before. And then it, of course, it pinnacled for him in 2014 where it was just this perfect storm, and you couldn't look at a position group and not find an all-time great player at every position in among every position group. Right. So I can't say that we're having access to new athletes that we've not had before. There's a reason that Marshall is a very, very high winning program amongst the G5, because you can have all the greatest coaches in the world. If you don't have the guys that can execute, you're not going to win very many football games. And Marshall's won a whole hell of a lot of football games across many conferences, across many eras, and won titles in those conferences. So I've definitely seen an uptick in maybe that super duper star player, like, I don't know, maybe like the Mike Green type thing. But even he didn't come here as a touted, portal player. He was virtually unknown. He had no real stats of any import coming out of UVA. He was just this raw talent that just was unstoppable, and you knew you had something. So it's tough for me to go there, right? Because I think at the end of the day, Marshall's not a brand like Ohio State or like Michigan. But when you start looking around the G5, there's not really a whole lot of programs that come to mind before Marshall, because we've just been like Boise, of course. They've been performing at a high level for a long time, but so have we. So we finally, we feel like we're in that upper echelon of G5 programs year in and year out. Yeah, we're biased, but we don't care. We've won a lot of games to be able to say that and feel that way. So I feel like guys know that they can come here and they can win here because guys have come here and win here. We're not a flash in the pan. We've never been a flash in the pan. We've been a sustained, successful program everywhere we've been. And I think that means something still to these guys.
I'll ask you both this question, and Russ, I'm going to start with you. What do you think the main strength of this team heading into 2025 is?
Oh, I'm really big on this defensive backfield. I think the offense is going to be, as a whole, I think it'll be a strength, but I really think this defensive backfield is going to turn some heads. And if they can provide enough coverage to allow these linebackers to feast, I think that's the way it'll be kind of an inverse of how it was last year. I feel like last year the defensive line was allowing everybody else to do it because they were causing so much havoc and getting so much pressure. I think our coverage on the defensive backs are going to dictate how well our defense plays, and I think that's going to be our biggest strength. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Katie, what about you? What do you think the main strength is?
I think you probably know what I'm going to say. The thing that's the most important to this defense, you hire a defensive-minded coach that's a linebackers guy, it's the linebacker room. That's where the special main strength lies, because I just told you, I think we have a Sunbelt Defensive Player of the Year caliber player in JaVale Gilmore, and if you have that type of guy, along with the other guy, I'm not discounting Cannon Lewis, Jabril El-Amin, Jalen Parker, all the guys that they've brought in the portal to solidify that entire unit, rebuild it, and rebrand it, really. But I think that's the overall strength, not just because it has to be in a 3-3-5, but because the way they recruited it to be in 2025. I think it's going to be really, really good and really fun to watch these guys go to work every Saturday.
Well, Russ, given the changes to this staff, to the team, what does success look like for the Thundering Herd in 2025?
I think going to a bowl. I think it's premature to say we're going to repeat as conference champions. We're in a very stacked, not just Sun Belt Conference, but the East Division. To where if you lose one game, like we did last year, we had to play that very last game to get into the conference championship game on the East. With only one loss, and a loss that was a fluke, to where 5 different things had to have happened for us to lose that game. I mean, it was a massive, massive meltdown by us, but we came close to becoming undefeated in the Sun Belt East last year, and barely made it into the conference championship game. So I think that is premature for us to say in such a rebuilding year with replacing what we had to do, that we could win a conference championship as that being success. If I had to have a barometer right now, it would be getting that bowl game, 6-6, 7-5, something like that. I think if you do that with everything that we lost, we're talking about, 3 snaps returning, no plays here, no plays here. Look at everything that we said in this episode of what we have to replace. So starting over pretty much from scratch, I think going to a bowl, that would be a huge victory.
Mm-hmm.
So, KD, if Russ says going to a bowl game is success, looking at the schedule, is there a part of the schedule that you are really focused on of like, here is a pivotal point or stretch in that schedule that you're really looking at?
I mean, the easy thing to say is that once you get into conference play, that's where it begins to get critical, right? Obviously. I feel really good about our out of conference. I think we should come out of that 3-1. So you should be already halfway towards bowl eligibility. But if you look down the schedule right at the very end, that's where it's going to get kind of rough. And you got to go on this run after the bye week. The last 5 games gets pretty tough, and they're going to mean a whole hell of a lot. You get a Thursday game at Coastal Carolina. Then you get James Madison, who's going to be good again at Jones C. Edwards Stadium. Then for the life of me, I can't understand why the Sun Belt chose to do this, but they put us on the road for 75 week for the Herd, which is a travesty in my opinion. We should always be at home for the game closest to November 14th. But they put us on the road against Georgia State. Then you go to Kid Brewer for App State, and then you close out at home with that rematch against Georgia Southern. So that last 5-game stretch is going to mean a lot for the Herd. It ain't going to get really any easier any way you look at it. It was unkind. We have a Sun Belt Conference Championship game rematch to kick off our SBC slate back down at Louisiana. We got a bye week. Then we're at Old Dominion and all the way out to play Texas State before that 5-game gauntlet. It's not a favorable schedule for the Herd, but that's never an excuse for us. We just want to win damn football games.
Well, Russ, we've talked about special teams, NIL, offense, defense. Is there anything else that you would like to share? I think that we need to know about this 2025 Marshall football team.
Yeah, I think that we're going to prove a lot of people wrong. You see a lot of so-called experts that can't possibly cover 136 teams, and they've read some headlines about the unable to play a bowl game because they didn't have enough players and coaches. And it's very easy for them to just say, well, let's write them off. But I've seen these so-called experts, and we're talking about social media people that don't even have a show like you and do the research like you. They just have a Twitter handle and a blue check, and they say, hey, I'm going to throw out this, and I should be taken seriously. But they have us as winning 2 games or 1 game, finishing dead last in the Sun Belt Conference, being like in the 131 to 136 range of the last 6 teams. And I just don't see it. And I think I'm happy for them to do that and for everyone to doubt us and us to sneak up on everybody. But again, I could see this team getting to a bowl game and getting 6 wins. And again, I think that you do that and you're going to see a lot of people say, wow, I was totally wrong, or wow, Marshall really has heart, or wow, Tony Gibson is a great coach, or wow, this player was a really great player. Any number of those, I think it's going to turn some heads. I truly believe, Luke, that we are going to see that this year, that people are going to be eating a lot of those posts that they made behind their blue check mark. Look at me, I have an opinion. I really think that opinion is going to be shown to be worth just about as much as the 160 characters or whatever that they are allowed to put together.
Well, Russ, make sure you keep those receipts. KD, ask you the same question. Is there anything else that you think that we need to know about this team heading into the 2025 season?
Yeah, it's a lot about what Russ just said, but I'm going to say a little bit I'm going to bring some data to go along with that. If you read some of these posts, you look at some of these lists and read some of these things that these people put out, you would think that we closed the doors on the football program after the Sun Belt Conference Championship. And I'm going to tell you, we didn't close the doors in 1971, and there ain't no damn transfer portal era or NIL anything that's going to take football away from Marshall University. We just don't roll that way. We're built different. People throw that term around a lot, but at Marshall University, football in particular is different, right? We are unflappable. So you can come here and you can transfer out, and you can, coaches will come and go and players will come and go, but football will remain in Huntington, West Virginia at Marshall University until there is not a Marshall University. I'd also like to point out that over the last decade, right, we've won more conference championships than we've had sub 6-win seasons. So we just don't fall off of a cliff here at Marshall. We've got 5 9+ win seasons over that last decade, the same decade. Half the years we've won 9 games or more. So we went through this several years ago. We went to a conference championship game in 2020 and made a coaching change. And the very first year of Coach Huff, we come out and win, 7 games?
7 games.
We're going through it again. Coaching change, portal, all that. I don't think we're a 2-win ball club. It just doesn't happen. Something catastrophic has to happen for Marshall to not win 2 or 3 games. We've only seen it once over the last decade. That's what people need to know. Marshall wins. They might not win every game, but they damn sure ain't going to lose every game. So count us out if you want to. We prefer that. We would love you to look over us and not pay us any attention until game day when you realize, damn, it's late in the third quarter and we're down 17. What the heck happened? These guys weren't supposed to be any good.
All right. Well, KD, Russ, thank you very much for taking some time out of your day to spend with me and share your knowledge. I greatly appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you all for your support. Until the next time, we are the G55.